Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us here in our APPI focus on ARV and Learn by Doing. Today's topic, we always have a topic, will be, at least I found it rather fascinating to get into this in detail, which is what do ARV, PK, and teleportation have in common? And the information I'm going to show you on teleportation, including scientific experiments, will, I think, hopefully, will kind of amaze you and give you a sense that indeed we are greater than we usually think we are. Now, here's the outline of what we'll be doing. We'll begin with the overview of ARV, description for newbies, and review for the oldies. And then we'll get into the topic, what do ARV, PK, and teleportation have in common? And then we'll be doing 2 feedback sessions. They both happen to be on the same topic, will the Patriots win the Super Bowl? And they both got the same hit answer, which was no. And then we're going to do in the class, an ARV prediction. We'll do the remote viewing and the analysis judging, and that is related to what I promised George Norrie we would do on Coast to Coast, and so we'll be doing that prediction, and that feedback won't come for a month. Okay, so let's first talk about associative remote viewing, ARV. And first, in linear time, so from left to right, if you go in linear time, it begins with a remote viewing session. And the remote viewing session basically has a rather simple task, which comes down to describe and or sketch your feedback target. Now, there are many different approaches to this, many different techniques. I'm not going to get into the remote viewing in any real detail. We'll talk more about it when we do it a bit later. But this is when you, as the remote viewer, view the target that you will see, experience during your feedback session in the future. What is rather amazing, and is just part of how the universe works, is that consciousness has access to information from distant places and distant times. Now that's rather remarkable. And yet true. We've demonstrated it here over and over. Many others have demonstrated it. And in fact, this has been done a millennium ago, just not called remote viewing. So you can get information from a distance, including time. And here we're talking about time. So you're to describe and sketch what is going to happen in the future in what is your feedback session. That's when you see and experience and work with the feedback target that you viewed earlier during your remote viewing session. That, in fact, is what precognition and retrocausality are all about. These are indeed entangled. Now, in between, to make this a rather practical application, there is an analysis judging session. So your transcript is made available to a judge, which may be you may be doing self-judging, you may give it to another person to judge. It doesn't seem to matter. It has to do, I think, with individual taste, your belief system. Some people prefer self-judging, some prefer independent judging. But in between, a judge will get into the process here, into the protocol, and that's when an action judgment is made. We are doing binary ARV. So the question which we are asking is a yes-no basic question. In our approach with these two possible targets, one of them is associated with yes, one is associated with no. Now, do realize right here that what the analyst judge does in that mindset during that period of time is totally irrelevant to the remote viewer and, in fact, to the feedback session. Here they just do a description. Here he really makes it real to entangle here. But now the judge, who happens to know the way this is set up, makes a decision based on how well each of those two targets are matched, each of those two possible targets are matched by this transcript. So what happens, of course, is since the remote viewer is connected here, what we see with odds much greater than chance is good descriptions of the feedback target. And so then, since one's associated with yes, one's associated with no, the judge can make a decision, and that is what the judge does. We'll say either yes or no, or sometimes a pass. In fact, there's nothing wrong with passes. If the information isn't clean enough, you simply pass. Now, another perspective on this, which I want to share with you, now that you understand that the remote viewer's job is to go to the feedback session and describe and sketch that target, I think you can kind of get the idea that in this space where precognition is real, it actually begins during the feedback session in many ways, because the feedback session is where the truth is known to you. So the tasking is just as we indicated, describe and sketch, but we use a 6-digit coordinate. Some people use letters. We use a 6-digit coordinate. It doesn't matter. And we use photo sites as our target. In the past, people and even ourselves have used objects, and you can go out to physical sites. But now, just so we do this regularly and it's easy to do over the internet, we use photo sites. And I want you now to understand what a photo site is, because it is more than a photograph. A photo site refers to the particular site location at the particular time that the photo was taken. So yes, you're going to be seeing a photo as the target, but consciousness is expected to move to that site at the time the photo was taken and to describe and or sketch what can be readily verified or inferred from the photo. So remember, the judge is also going to be looking at the photo and your transcript. So the photo site built into the tasking, because this is what your target is what can be readily verified or inferred from the photo. So that becomes a big part of your intention. Now, what this is going to give you during your remote viewing session are what we call first impression gestalts, the kind of big picture thing that hits you first when you first see the picture. But then the other visuals, the color, shapes, dimensions, sounds, smells, tastes. You can get tactile sensations, emotions. You can report through your nervous system everything that is at that photo site target. You're able to do that. It's done all the time, as a matter of fact. So when you look at it at feedback time, you can imagine all of these things, and your nervous system can, in fact, react to what's there. But what's amazing, of course, is that you can pick that up during your earlier remote viewing session. Okay, so the target is the feedback photo site. The judging phase is where, since there are two possible targets, this is the way the protocol is set up. One is the actual feedback target, and the other is a possible only. And of course, you want to describe the real one. And so I frankly believe once you appreciate the precognition, retrocausality, these are the way the universe works, the ARV idea is easy to understand. Now I'm going to stop here and just ask for questions before we go on, just to make sure you all understand this. Okay. Okay, so now let's get into what do ARV, PK, and teleportation have in common. You know, we've talked about, most of you have done ARV and remote viewing, but I think we're also reasonably familiar with spoon bending parties, such as you know, we have them and people bend spoons. Lots of people have done it. This goes back for many, many, many years. In our last workshop webinar, someone, in fact, a skeptic, actually bent a rod. Okay, and on our website, you can actually see her discuss that. I'm not going to go into that now, though. I don't want to take that time. Now, what I want to get into, which is really new, so much of this is new for me in terms of the real science behind it. We've all talked about, you know, beam me up, Scotty. We all know that general idea. But here was a physics paper written by this Eric Davis. And I just found out about this when he and Hal Puthoff were actually interviewed on Coast to Coast, not by Nori, but by someone else. And this was mentioned, and it's on the internet. You'll see the link later. I'm happy to share this with anyone. And I actually contacted Eric Davis and got even another paper, which, again, if you would like, I'd be happy to send it to any of you. In fact, I am hoping that some of you will be interested enough to pursue this in more detail. I'm just not going to have really much time to do that. Now, what is teleportation? Teleportation is, and I love the word theoretical, transfer of matter or energy from one point to another without traversing the physical space between them. It is a common subject in science fiction literature, film, video games, and television. Okay, so this picture is really kind of what it's about, because you start at one point in space and time, you effectively disappear from here, dematerialize, and you materialize over here. I would say most people would not believe that. I would say it's hard for any of us to believe. But remember, so is precognition, retrocausality, what we're doing. In fact, that's probably one of the important things it has in common. Now, Uh, okay, so now let me go forward. Here's the link to the full paper. Um, and what I want to do, and literally, I don't think it's always best to do as much reading as I'm about to do here, but I really want you to get what Eric Davis's um, conclusions were in the study he did. And so he wanted to, at this point, what I'm going to quote you is confine our discussions to the controlled laboratory experiments that have been performed and reported. So these are controlled. He started talking actually, again, interestingly enough, with the fact that teleportation might be observed with some UFO phenomenon. But he didn't want to focus on that. He wanted to focus on the controlled laboratory experiments, okay? So one of the more interesting examples of controlled experiments was with Uri Geller, and he was able to cause a part of a vanadium carbide crystal to vanish. The crystal was encapsulated, so it could not be touched, and it was placed in such a way that it could not be switched with another crystal by sleight of hand. So this was done way back in 1975. Now, watch this. A more spectacular series of rigorously controlled and repeatable, and that's his exclamation mark, laboratory experiments occurred in the People's Republic of China. In September 1981, an extraordinary paper was published in the PRC in this journal, which is translated Nature Journal. We happen to have a journal called Nature too. And this paper was entitled, Some Experiments on the Transfer of Objects Performed by Unusual Abilities of the Human Body. Okay. The paper reported that gifted children were able to cause the apparent teleportation of small objects, radio microtransmitters, photosensitive paper, mechanical watches, and horseflies in particular, and other insects, etc. So I happen to think the human being, the living entity connection is really kind of a step up and rather important. Now, so they teleported these from one location to another that was meters away without them ever touching the objects beforehand. So there's even more. The experiments were operated under exceptionally well-controlled conditions, both blind and double-blind. The researchers involved included not only observers from various PRC colleges and medical research institutes, but also representatives from the PRC National Defense Science Commission. Because of that involvement, it was deemed necessary that an unclassified intelligence report be prepared by the DIA. And that has an English translation, and that's the other document that Eric sent to me, which, as I said, I'll be happy to share with anybody that is interested. Now, additional research carried out by the Aerospace Medicine Engineering Institute in Beijing was reported in the July 1990 issue of the Chinese Journal. And it's also been translated into English by the DIA. I do not have that one. I will ask for it. Reported in several articles are experiments involving the videotaping and high-speed photography of the transfer of test specimens, nuts, bundles of matches, nails, threads, etc., through the walls of sealed paper envelopes, double-layered KCNS type paper bags, sealed glass bottles, and tubes with sealed caps and sealed plastic film canisters, without the walls of any of these containers being breached. So they were obviously trying to do what anybody who, once you have these talented children who can do teleportation, okay, let's put it in places and let's see if it gets through, and let's put let's take pictures of it. Let's put devices that can report to us. I mean, they're doing what were really rather natural experiments, but we've never done it. I don't understand. But anyway, they're done in China. All of the Chinese experiments reported using gifted children and young adults who possessed well-known extraordinary PK ability to cause the teleportation of the various test specimens. In all the experimental cases that were reported, the test specimens that were teleported were completely unaltered or unchanged from their initial state. Even the insects were unaffected by being teleported. Okay, this is the 1981 the cover of the document which Eric sent me, and you know, 1981. I wonder what they've been doing since then. And I just wanted to show one page from this document because they included a monitor, a device which had a signal that was transmitted, and they were monitoring that transmission. And I just want you to see some of the key words here. I just haven't had time to study this document, and I just, I'm just committed to the precognition as my first priority. But this is just so interesting because here they're talking about a stable signal. The test sample disappears. Over here, the test sample is found, presumably the meter or so, a few meters away, and they're showing how the signal is modified. I mean, it, what that means, I don't know, but I don't even think they know. At least they didn't know back then, because they use words like we tentatively, believe when the monitored signal strength is stable at a constant non-zero value, this may correspond to the test specimen state of being. That is, the test specimen has not disappeared. Okay, so they're struggling in understanding this. Or aftering, so that's interesting in the translation, having disappeared, it has reappeared. And they use those kind of words, and they're trying to relate it to the amplitude and the fluctuations, and they're trying to figure it out as scientists, good scientists, would do. And so this whole paper has many more details about that, but I've got to say, this has upped my belief in teleportation, to a rather high level. Well, okay. So let's, at least for the moment, let's assume teleportation now is real as the remote viewing and the ARV that we know about. Spoon bending is real, and now even teleportation. These, on the surface, really look like different subjects. And now I want to begin to see if I can tie all this together in a way that you kind of accept, and I hope actually assist you in your precognitive work. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about physics and consciousness. Now, the first thing to remember here is that there's always a person involved in this. I'm using that as the I, psi. I kind of like that symbol. Um, so remember, there's a person here with consciousness involved in all of this. The physics and all the physics models never discuss that, and that's fine. Um, and we've come an awful long way. There are even models out there now in the physics for wormholes and things of that sort. So our physics actually says that teleportation may in fact be possible based on physics models. So physics is very, very powerful, but just consciousness is involved in all of these. And I want to give you some quotes now of the people who go back to when quantum mechanics was first trying to be understood. So these are guys 50 plus some years ago who were, Schrodinger's equation is the most famous equation in quantum mechanics. And these guys were trying to figure it out. Okay, and this is a quote from Schrodinger. Consciousness cannot be accounted for in physical terms, for consciousness is absolutely fundamental. It cannot be accounted for in terms of anything else. So if you're down to the most fundamental, and all of you know that's now my famous mantra, consciousness is fundamental. Okay, Max Planck said the same thing. I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. He said it another way. Science cannot solve the ultimate mystery of nature, and that is because, in the last analysis, we ourselves are a part of the mystery that we are trying to solve. So, consciousness is fundamental. I mean, just getting that deep, and you got it. Each of us has it. It's kind of remarkable. Now, this gets into the spiritual. Vedanta teaches that consciousness is singular. All happenings are played out in one universal consciousness, and there is no multiplicity of cells. So this is the heart of Hinduism, a book, but his point here, I think, is using words that really talk about what deep spirituality is all about. That in some sense, there's no multiplicity. We all are one. We're all connected. That's kind of the deepest spiritual principle in my opinion. And he refers to that as one universal consciousness. Okay, this was kind of interesting because, we are moving to where the Dalai Lama and neuroscientists, so Buddhists and neuroscientists agree, consciousness is everywhere. They put another kind of feeling on this that I wanted to share with you. We're using words for something which is so fundamental that we know words can't capture it all. But by talking about it in different ways, we hope we get a deeper and deeper sense of it. So there are new theories in neuroscience suggesting that consciousness is an intrinsic property of everything, just like gravity. So they've done cooperation. One of the guys involved in this says the heart of consciousness is that it feels like something. How is it that a piece of matter like the brain can feel anything? And that's another way of stating what is the key question about consciousness, the question. How can that happen? We learn a lot about the brain. We know where different thoughts and different ideas and feelings might come from, but how does that all happen? How does it feel like something? And indeed it does. And here I wanted to add consciousness is everywhere and every time, right? We know that because of our precognition. Neuroscientists probably would not even accept that, but someday they will, and they should. Now, again, in the trying to tie all this together, I've presented this before, but I just hope it'll help tie everything together here. If you take this blue circle to be everything, everything in the physical world, everything in the spiritual universe, ideas, everything that you can imagine. The best way I know how to say it is that everything that consciousness touches in any way, okay? In space-time, in other dimensions, if consciousness is there, it's in this blue thing. So that's basically what I would say is all that is. Now, one of the interesting things about this idea is that this blue boundary cannot have a boundary. So I'm drawing it as a circle because I want to indicate it, but notice it can't have a boundary because as soon as you postulate, think about anything outside the boundary, it immediately is inside the boundary. So this happens to be a construct without a boundary. It's interesting that our physical universe happens to be the same way. You know, there's no wall, there's no boundary in the physical universe, there's no end. Um, so anyway, but this is a construct in consciousness space. This is the ultimate. Okay, so that's what the blue is. Now, as soon as we try to take out anything from the boundary, you have to have, since there is no such thing as a boundary, you have to have what I call a fuzzy boundary. So within this universe of collective consciousness, the circle contains all consciousness. It's the ultimate in the definition of oneness and harmony. It just, that's what it is. It's there. Okay, but now we naturally try to take something out of it. We see ourselves as being separate, okay, as an individual. But we then must have, and indeed we do, have a fuzzy boundary. I mean, you know, even our physical bodies are somewhat vague. Quantum mechanics says that, but it's much deeper than that. We're putting radiation out all the time. Is that radiation that goes out from us? Do we still want to consider that to be part of us? Okay. We can do things like precognition. So what is it when I even think of myself? It's got a fuzzy boundary, but that's true of anything. So I'm just going to use the word thing for anything that consciousness touches. And when consciousness touches it, that's like a moment. That's almost like the atom of in here, past, present, and future. Now, what's interesting is, and let's look at this first for something we're comfortable with, which is ARV. In this universe of collective consciousness are all things, but events. What are events? Events are multiple now conscious moments, okay? You can think of maybe the primary thing being this conscious moment. And I can't frankly even define that. It doesn't have a specific time frame or anything like that, but we have a sense of a now, and then a next now, and then a next now, and a next now. And when we get a bunch of these nows together, you know, we go to a football game, that football game is an event which is connected with a bunch of nows. Okay, so that's what I mean by events. Now, in our lives, we have lots of events, and I think it's a rather good thing that we can forget these events. I don't think you want to carry everything in your conscious now moment. So we get to ignore events, and that's like a decrease of entanglement with our conscious mind. But we also can increase that entanglement. So let's just give an example of that. Remote viewing, that event, right? That contains a lot of conscious moments. You know, you start at the beginning and you write your coordinate, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's an event, your remote viewing session. And we always ask you to write end or end of session at the end, EOS, just to acknowledge that you've now completed that event. But it obviously has a fuzzy boundary. Well, what about your feedback session? That's another event. Okay. And what's amazing is that you can entangle these and you can increase the entanglement between these events. Okay. What's involved in that? I want to talk about that. But I think we've talked about it before. But what's important to get is that since you try to look at these things as individual, they can't be, because they always have to have a fuzzy boundary. And it's through this fuzzy boundary that you get all the entanglement. Okay. I want to do this now to show you that physics, our standard physics, quantum mechanical physics, good description of our world, it can be measured. And again, this is physical world entanglement, transformed and purified, and a pair of quantum systems in an entangled state can be used to get quantum information channel, to develop a quantum information channel. This isn't debatable. Okay, they do this now with particles, electrons, light, probably molecules now. Don't think they've done it with living things yet. Though the Chinese, that may be exactly what they're doing there. Note that. Quantum information channel to perform computation and cryptographic tasks that are impossible for classical systems. This is how far our physics has gone. But, it doesn't seem to be too large a step now that we are saying, hey, teleportation is real. That maybe something very similar might be going on. Okay. Here is the idea of the entanglements. Remote viewing session, you're pulling it out from the UCC, but it has a fuzzy boundary. It still has to be connected to everything since there's no such thing as a boundary. Well, maybe, and notice one of the things it's connected to is a feedback session, but notice how that might happen. Your remote viewing session might, in fact, talk about a gestalt. That gestalt is connected to the feedback session. You're doing these things in time, but the entanglements are like outside of time, just as the UCC has time as just one of the elements in it. But these entanglements have nothing to do with time. You're connected to the gestalt. The gestalt is there at the feedback session. Here's another gestalt over here connected to the feedback session. All of this is happening through the fuzzy boundary connecting to the UCC. You have all these elements. In addition, more detailed elements in your transcript. They come up in the remote viewing session. They're all entangled. You're connected. They're connected to the feedback session. Okay? So, and you can work this at the feedback session time by paying a lot of attention to an element, which then will be picked up at the remote viewing session. The same thing with the gestalts, which tend to come in early. They're sort of big picture. Oh, there's the gestalt, okay? And you can do this here, and then it happens there. I think this happens quite naturally, but Now, why not do it on purpose, since this is the way the universe seems to work? This is the way the universe, in fact, works. Oh, okay. I meant to, and it looks like it didn't come here, but imagine if these were reversed, where this was the feedback session and this was the remote viewing session. Because when you're doing your feedback session, you're bringing it out as if it's a unique event. Okay, and it is a unique event, but it has a fuzzy boundary. And so it's all entangled with your remote viewing session if you see this as a feedback session. But then I went one step further, and this is exactly true for when you're doing a PK session or a teleportation session. These are, they're not exactly remote viewing sessions, though I wonder if you were, in fact, to have a piece of paper and write down your feelings and thoughts about how that spoon might bend, how it might look. During doing this session, you're in fact connecting up with the spoon bending, the rod bending, the horsefly leaving the jar it's in and appearing someplace else. You're imagining all of that. You're doing your remote viewing session. You're receiving that information from your subconscious, from the UCC, because it's happening here, but you're going to get it here. It's the same thing in terms of this big picture model, because consciousness is fundamental. Everything is connected through all space and time, and you can do this sort of thing. You can imagine doing it, and that seems to be enough. Okay. Oh, there's a feedback session. I just had it out of order. As you probably have picked up, I do a lot of this stuff last minute. Plus, I was spending a lot of time on that paper. Fascinating. Okay. Now, let's see if we can connect up physics and consciousness. Wouldn't that be cool at least some level? Consciousness is fundamental, so we're not going to explain it, but I believe what's sometimes called quantum foam, way back when it was first called the zero point energy field, ZPE, those are the kind of words that were used. This is an artist's conception of what goes on at about 10 to the 35, right, 10 with 35 zeros after it, smaller in our world, everywhere. Every place, every time in our physical universe, there are energy popping in and out at times that are, so small, it's like you have no concept of what that really means. So popping in and out. This is a frame from a film done, I'm not sure anymore. It might have been Sandia Livermore, one of the labs. And the words they used was from nothing and disappears back into nothing. So it pops in, pops out. It's there, it's not there. It's there, it's not there. So these are like electrons and anti-electrons, protons, antiprotons, coming in, combining, going away. It basically comes down to propagating electromagnetic type of radiation in the physical world, but at the smallest levels. This is not debated stuff, okay? The ZPE field is absolutely real. Now, they talk about nothing from the physical world perspective. Okay, it seems like it's coming from nowhere. But what if it really is entangled with a non-physical reality, which might be outside of space and time? Nothing is sort of like that. And guess what I'm going to now connect it to? Conceptually, in the physical world, okay, there's this ZPE field. Um, we can call it a physical matrix. It may even be the thing that Ingo sort of meant, though I think he also would think of it as non-physical, but I don't know. But between this ZPE field down here where things are going in and out, on one side, but the word side obviously is in quotation marks, right? But connected to it is the whole physical universe. This field is everywhere, every time in the physical world, okay, where we can talk space and time. Um, so it's everywhere, every time. And it's actually hard to find something else that's everywhere and every time at this fundamental level. So that's on the physical level. Well, what if the non-physical level, this universe of collective consciousness, was in some fashion influencing, directing the ZPE field, which then affected the physical world? So that's the model. It fundamental here goes through a ZPE field, gets into the physical world through this through the field. So a way to look at this is that the ZPE field, the zero-point energy field, may be the interface with the universe of collective consciousness. Now, the physical objective universe, I mean, we live in a physical objective universe. You know, it's pretty objective most of the time. It does things most of the time the way we would predict. But nevertheless, we're pulling that out of the UCC. It's not everything. And I think the ZPE field is the fuzzy boundary connecting the universe of collective consciousness with the objective physical universe. I want to just make so plain to you, as plain as I can, how important the zero-point energy field is to our whole physical objective universe. And it comes down to as fundamental as why atoms don't collapse. In 1987, our Hal Puthoff from SRI with Russ Stark started the remote viewing program. When he left that, he went into the zero-point energy field as a physicist and has done lots and lots of work on that. And he examined the ZPE and the stability of matter in detail. Okay, so there are some additional words in there. This is a quote. Puthoff noted that in the same way that a child on a swing receives resonantly timed pulses from an adult to keep the swing going, so also the electron received resonantly timed pushes from the ZPE. This resonance mechanism transfers energy from the zero-point fields and maintains electrons in their atomic orbits. Since over 87% of atoms in the cosmos are hydrogen, this analysis is relevant, quite relevant. But I also want you to notice this pushes idea. The swing, you push, you wait, you push, you wait. That's a little bit like what the teleportation graph showed, where the signal was on and then off and then on and then off. It wasn't a constant push. It was rather interesting to see the words here correspond. And thus the conclusion here and that's from this paper who analyzed what Hal did. Thus, the very existence of atoms and atomic structures depend on this ZPEC. Without it, all matter in the universe collapses instantaneously. So I think the ZPE as the connection makes a lot of sense. And I think if you think about it that way, you can bring all of these what look like separate psi phenomenon, all are different manifestations of the fact that the UCC is fundamental, and it does its work, if you will, through the 0-point energy field. Okay, so I now want to say this a slightly different way, again, to try to deepen these ideas, which I hope will actually deepen you and your ability to do precognition as well as PK and stuff like that, if that's what you would like to do. So here we have the 3 parts of ARV, right? So here's your setting your intention, and now let's say it's precognitive kind of intention. You starting here again is where your subconscious gets connected and is able to make what I want to call a handshake, just another word for entanglement, between your feedback session and your remote viewing session. And we always talk about intention, attention, and expectation being an important part of that, which is certainly true, but also emotions are an important part of that. More and more, I think we're all seeing that if you're kind of in a negative place, if you think anywhere during this process it's going wrong, it's probably going wrong. Just feelings become a part of this, what I'm calling entanglement energy now. This is a real thing which you can feel. This is the consciousness feelings which are going on. However, notice your sub in both places is connected to the UCC. You know, we have this subconscious which we know is attached to us. You know, the conscious mind does things, and then you've got your subconscious, and it holds memories, it holds all kinds of other things with it, and you kind of feel like it's yours. But where does that end? It's got a fuzzy boundary, and it's through that fuzzy boundary that it connects up with the UCC, and it's able to connect up with your sub at an earlier time. Time is sort of irrelevant in the UCC because everything is just down there. Okay, so this happens to be, in my opinion, the best picture of what in fact is going on. So that's my judgment. I like to look at it this way. I want to connect up now with this John Kramer. He has a model. He calls it the transactional interpretation of quantum mechanics. And again, this is all physics. This part is not debatable. It leads to all the same equations that the other quantum mechanical models do. It predicts all the same sorts of things. But in his model, in his interpretation, he's able to put together something like this. Okay, so let me make this as clear to you as I can. These are his words. So here's a star. This is time. So here's a star putting out normal photons, you know, we would think moving at the speed of light. And here's you. Here's your eyes right here. So when we stand in the dark and look at a star 100 light years away, not only have the offer waves, so these are offer waves, all for light waves. Now these are forward in time, right, from E in the sketch, from the star, been traveling for 100 years to reach your eyes. So that's, that's the way we normally think about these. But there are also, confirmation waves. Now these are backward in time waves from A, that's you, that's your eye, generated by absorption processes within our eyes. They have reached 100 years into the past, completing what he calls the transaction that permitted the star to shine in our direction. That's pretty strong, permitted, but nevertheless, these are his words. I think he sort of means permitted our consciousness to see the star, stuff like that. But in his model, you have to have this forward-going wave and backward in time wave. Now, these are quantum mechanical waves. These are the psi type of waves, but they have to go forward and backward in time until you have this transaction, which he in fact calls a handshake. That was his word, which I stole, and I love it. Okay, now notice when we perform an ARV viewing session, quantum mechanical alpha waves travel forward in time. Here's our viewing session. Here's our feedback session. I mean, it's the same thing. But now, standard physicists always talk about mass and material and that sort of thing. But it looks like it's the same exact thing in consciousness kind of space. In fact, that may be where it starts, and I believe now it does start down there, leading to all the same kinds of things we see in the physical world. Okay, but you can see the exact analogy. It's exactly the same analogy. I like this quote from Einstein, so I put it here. The only reason for time is so that everything doesn't happen at once. Okay, so that connects up these. Okay, what's happening here? Where's my next slide? Sorry. Okay, something got hung up here. Let me see if I can get into it. Oh yeah, this is the next one. Okay, so we did this one, and now, okay, so the next point here is, and maybe you've already gotten the flavor of my talk and bottom line here, is teleportation, PK, they're the same. They're the exact same thing. This is not exactly a remote viewing session, but it is the place you set up your intentions and all that, and then you get feedback. Somebody in the loop is seeing feedback, otherwise you wouldn't know it was teleportation. And the same thing with PK. So it's the same. It just manifests because of your intention and expectation. And belief system, and who knows what other things are involved, but at least now we believe those are the most important, manifest in the same way. Now here, I just added in intention, in PK in particular, but I think also in teleportation, but in spoon bending, they always say, set your intention, make it clear, your expectation, but then turn away. And I think that might have to do with just trusting, letting the UCC do its thing and your subconscious do its thing. Okay, and then the other thing which comes in here are beliefs, and I'm sure there are plenty of unknowns and unknown unknowns and stuff like that. But this model seems to tie everything together. Now, what about learning? We're talking about this, but we're all trying to learn. Our focus now is on learning precognition better. And I wanted to show this one from Donna, who this is our classical standard hit rate curve. The red is cumulative from the beginning, hits over hits plus misses, passes are ignored. So she's done, I don't know, 85, 86 sessions here. The blue are just taking the last 10 non-pass predictions and getting a hit rate based on those. So you can see they stop at every 10 and nothing else. So they always have to be 10, 20, 30, 40. She got as high as 90% here. But what I think is most important, and what I use as right now an important measure for what the next prediction might be, what the probability of that might be, is the green curve, which is 25 days. So the green curve here, which I hope you can see, is 25 days. And look at the learning that's gone on with that. And so right now she's up at like 76% and still learning. Who knows how high it's going to go, but eventually it will level off someplace. I happen to believe there's an uncertainty principle, macro uncertainty principle. I won't let it be 100 forever, but who knows? We've said 80%. Logic will get you from A to B. Imagination will take you everywhere. Einstein. Imagination is everything. Notice imagination is a non-physical sort of thing. It is the preview of life's coming attractions. I just recently found that quote. I love that. Preview, precognitive sort of idea of life's coming attractions. The true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination. When you're doing your remote viewing session, you're letting information come in. It's a type of imagination. It's not the here and now physical world. It's in this consciousness kind of space only during your remote viewing session. And then it's a preview of your feedback session. So people have been talking about this stuff for so long in so many different ways. The information is really out there, but getting it deep in our guts is the next step. I like this one from The Matrix. Do not try and bend the spoon. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth. Then you'll see that it is not the spoon that bends, it's only yourself. So here's the spoon, maybe here's you imagining it, intending it to bend, but it's you and you through the UCC who is involved with bending the spoon. That you two are somehow recognizing that you're really not separate, you're connected. Okay, I did that in about an hour, which is what I had hoped. Questions, comments on that? Does that make sense to you or not? Okay, I know. Oh, good. There have been comments in the chat box. Yeah, right. Paul Dirac was one of those guys. The C's. We all are leaves in the same tree. Right. Right. You see, in fact, let me even now give you more quotes, but these tend to be, well, you'll see. Your comments in the chat box really lead to getting this so deeply and believing it at such a deep level that you just know it is what are going to get you to be better and better at precognition at PK, maybe even teleportation if you want to fool around with that. Our focus and my focus will continue to be precognition because it uses all the same principles, and I see it as being a much more practical application. Bending spoons is fun, and that's why we do it at our conferences, but precognition is quite practical, and so I think it makes sense to keep a focus there. But some of you others may want to go in different directions, and I'd like to follow that. But here are some other very relevant quotes. I think your opinion of yourself is your most important viewpoint. You are infinitely greater than you think you are. Goddard said that from the Goddard Space Station. Space Center, I guess. Anyway, Goddard, he kind of got it. We really are capable of doing so much more than we normally give ourselves credit for. And getting to the point where you can do those other things is really our challenge. Why not do the most you can? And Galileo, this was an interesting one. You cannot teach a man anything. You can only help him find it within himself. And he's talking about these kind of things. The fact that you are so much greater than you believe you are. I can tell you that, but that's meaningless until you internalize it and make all these connections with your subconscious and the UCC, and then you know it. Life can never be fully gratifying if we don't become aware of our own inner power, our connection to the God force. And I don't even know, he's another guy. I just looked him up quickly, and he's another fellow out there, psychic type. Mystics, of course, have said all the same sorts of things, and that's it. Get it. Then all of this stuff becomes the same. Just happens to be what you intend to do. So I try to summarize this intellectually, which is impossible, but I'm going to do it anyway. What do ARV, PK, and teleportation have in common? I believe the main thing is the UCC. The fact that you got to really get that deep down, as fundamental as you can go, is that consciousness is fundamental. And the fun is non-trivial because that brings in emotions, all of that kind of stuff, joy. The source is the UCC. Somehow it something which we get to feel. We feel consciousness itself. That was amazing that the neuroscientists were able to put it that way, but it's true. And then the ZPE field, which is what connects this, which is kind of outside space and time. Space as a thing, space-time, let's say, as a thing, the whole physical world as a thing is in the UCC, but the UCC is bigger than that. But how does it connect up with the physical world? The ZPE field. And then this whole idea of entanglements. This is where I frankly think quantum mechanics talks about uncertainty principle and entanglements in the physical world being the two fundamental things that quantum mechanics teaches us. And I think that's exactly true here as well. It's this entanglement with events that is key. You're connecting up with the conscious mind, the now moment. Your conscious mind is really only in the now, but then you have the subconscious mind entanglements with the UCC. And then the fact that and this is where free will and all this stuff comes in, and I don't want to get into that in any detail, but we have the ability in a now moment to set attention, to do our expectation. So that's really important. And then these emotions and feelings about our events um, are important, going into it, during it, coming out of it, all of that. And then I believe beliefs. One step before the direct knowledge. The direct knowledge is your now moment. You know nothing with more certainty than this now moment. But beliefs about the physical world paradigm. How deeply do you believe teleportation is possible? How deeply do you believe precognition is possible? Okay, that has a play in here. And then maybe even the most important is, what are your beliefs about yourself? How powerful do you believe you really are? Um, and I would just like to add, what does it take to get you to believe you are more powerful than you believe you are now? Because it's clear that power capability is enormous. And part of that belief connects back up with the UCC, because it isn't the little you that really doing all this. It's you in conjunction with your subconscious and the UCC. I think you always have to have this feeling of being immersed in something much bigger than yourself. And that's the UCC, in my opinion. Okay. Want to get back to, unless there are any questions or comments? Okay. Let's do some feedback. And we'll do two. I'm going to take a little stretch here. You might want to do the same. Not a real break, but a mini break. And I'll have my little cup of tea. Okay. This is this table. It's too big now for me to show the whole table, but we've been doing this since 2016, and these are all our month plus predictions. And the two that we are going to do feedback on today both basically ask the question, will the New England Patriots win the NFL Super Bowl game in 2018? I asked that again, so that was in May. I asked that again in November, a slightly different way, and those are the two coordinates. So how do I get my feedback target, you might ask? Well, everything about we, and so now I'm talking to the newbies, is online. It's done through email, and the information goes between our server. So a lot of information is saved to help you learn. And you get to go back and look at it. So in this case, let's just go ahead and let's do it. So the way we do it, as I said, it's an email, and the feedback, I have to find the email, so I want you to actually see how that's done. Okay, and it's done here. So here's the feedback. So here are the two of them. Yeah, I did this one first. I just want to make sure I bring up the correct one first. Yeah, that's the one that was done in, some of these other numbers are just to keep all of the information straight. So it's for the databasing. Okay, so at the feedback level, you get an email like this one. And when you did the tasking, you got a tasking email. And both of these just simply connect up to a link, just like this. So the tasking one was like that, and it gave the tasking. So now let's go to the feedback email. So you simply click on it. Generally, everybody gets their own target. So it's different. So you just have to look at your own subconscious, because the targets are different, so you have to look at your own. But for these workshop webinars, I represent all of us so that we can all talk about the same transcripts going for the same target. So that's really a teaching mechanism. Plus, sometimes people actually like to do that on purpose. Okay, so there it is. The first one was 329,789, and there's the feedback target. Now, this is how you get it. You can make it big. And let's now do this one as an example. Remember, precognition begins here. So I just copied it to here. And I'm just going to show for this one, I believe, one transcript. But we will talk about it in a way. This is Judy D. Are you here by any chance? I actually like the person to do it, but they're not always here, so I will do it roughly, but you know, I can't always read all the handwriting and everything. But the first thing was when she saw it, she probably got a reaction from it. And notice she'll have her transcript near her, and this transcript, okay, so I'm going to be talking about it and doing it at the same time. But this transcript is her judging transcript, which you're going to be doing shortly. And notice I told you there were two potential targets, two possible targets. Well, one is called photosite A, the other is called photosite B. We use a confidence ranking system from 0 to 7, Russell Targs. And so you can see right up here, her bottom line was she gave a confidence ranking of 2.5 and B was 4.5. Okay, she's doing her feedback, and I know looking at this now, the first thing that hit me was, oh boy, look how good this shape is. And if I were her, I would either on another piece of paper duplicate it, or on this one circle it. I mean, this is really good. I would emphasize it, which entangles with the remote viewing session. You know, why did she do that? You know, a major gestalt right away. There it is. Just beautiful. The AOL on that was a house. And notice, and this is so important for all of us, to get better and better the distinctive feeling between information coming up, if you will, from the subconscious versus the intellect. If it's coming from the intellect, yeah, that certainly looks like a house, but she recognized that she said that because it was from the intellect, and she marked that as an analytical overlay, an AOL. That's exactly what an AOL is. So we have a really good example of that right there. And then she marked A's and B's based on the words, and the good ones that match, she should emphasize it again, get the good feeling for the things which matched well. Get into this feeling place where you're feeling that your consciousness has it. I can't, you know, I'm having trouble reading all these words. Now, one of the really good things about sketches, just like this, and this is exactly the way things typically come up. Notice here in my consciousness, you know, I'm seeing that as being this, right? And oh my God, so that is great. So that's how I can do square-like shapes and connected square-like shapes. And it's interesting that this, even though she marked it as an A, I can kind of see that as maybe light waves now. You know, maybe I'm stretching things, but there you go. Okay, flare, marked it as a B. That looks a lot like a flare. Not bad, light, flare-like, okay. And you go over all the elements, and the ones that you didn't get you disregard. And sometimes you might get the opposite of it. If you get the opposite of it, I always use that as an example to emphasize um, the positive, the thing which I wish I had gotten. Always spend a little time during the feedback session. This is when you're doing your training. It happens so naturally in ARV. You always use the feedback, you train yourself. And I don't know if she got water. I can't tell. But let's say she didn't. I would say, hey, sub, you did a great job here. Thank you. Um, for everything you did give me, but gee, it would have been nice if you gave me water. So let me tell you what I think water feels like. And I am looking right now. I'm helping my own subconscious, and you all could do it. What does water feel like? I'm actually imagining myself putting my finger in there and trying to feel wet. Yeah, water, wet. And I happen to have a symbol of water which is like wavy. Wavy. So you do things like that in there. And then I would write on the transcript or another sheet of paper the word water, because that's something I wish I had gotten. I've just helped train my subconscious down to the UCC, so it'll give it back to me with that feeling next time water comes around. So the feedback session is your time for learning. Okay. And on that other sheet of paper or here, write end of session FB. You've finished your feedback event. And you go on with the rest of your life. So that was one particular event. Now, here we talked about what happened with CAR, with the TARG system. And let's go look at it now in a little more detail. In fact, a lot of you already know this, but I think it's important to do. There'll be newbies who might be here and who will be looking at this. Russell Targ, one of the guys with Hal Puthoff, who worked at Stanford Research Institute, wanted to put together a confidence ranking system. We call it a CR system, where you would give a 0 to 7 ranking on how good did your transcript match the target. So 0 is no correspondence, 1 is little correspondence, 2 basically says no results beyond chance. You just got a couple of things maybe that matched. And it just, you don't have the feeling that it really was psychic. You'd give it a 2. 3, for the first time, you have a mixture of correct and still incorrect elements. Notice he uses the word elements. So each of those words and the sketches there, all the things that were marked A and B were individual elements. But not enough of the correct ones, the former, to indicate the viewer, but enough of the former to indicate the viewer had made contact with the target. So a 3 is the first time you say, yep, I think I did make psychic contact, but just barely, if you will. A 4 now is good correspondence. This was the first time he indicated the word good, and several matchable elements intermixed with some incorrect information. There's still incorrect information at a level of a 4, but nevertheless, this was a pretty good session. Okay, now a 5, 3.5 first is what we consider wagerable. In our system, we just established if you're just barely there with a 3, okay, that's fine, subconscious, but I don't want to get to where I'm going to take action on it. Now a 5 is not only good correspondence, but he's added these key words: unambiguous, unique, matchable elements. So that's a higher standard, if you will. You need to be able to, if you give it a 5, there ought to be a few things in there where you can say, oh, this is so unique to this particular target that it's just clear. I mean, this is really excellent session. Okay, so you've got unambiguous, unique, matchable elements, but there's still some incorrect information. When you get up to the 6 and the 7 level, we're now bringing in things like naming the function of the target, analytical overlay kind of stuff at the 7 level. This is sort of analytical. When you name the function, that's like an analytical overlay. And here he says relatively little incorrect, and for a 7, no, essentially no incorrect. So the jump to 6 and 7 kind of brings in the AOL stuff, which most of the time we tend to ignore, but sometimes they're right on. And if, even though they come from the intellect, if they're right on, you give yourself extra credit for it. But again, please don't ever underplay the 4s and the 5s. Those are very good sessions, okay? Several matchable elements with some incorrect, but strong. And a 5 is very strong. Okay, so she gave herself a 4.5 on her comparison here, and I wouldn't quarrel with that. The other thing you should know is that different judges looking at the exact same transcript, the exact same target, often differ by 1. So, period. So there's a bit of an art in there, and you need to know your remote viewer, whether it's yourself, how you're doing, or if it's somebody else, and you'll do that through experience. Okay, this was the second one. I won't go get it, but it was obtained the exact same way from an email. And the second one is 599235. And I always recommend saying it out loud. That's another kind of entanglement. You say the coordinate out loud during the remote viewing session, and you say it out loud at feedback time, intending that to be an entanglement. Okay, and your subconscious understands that, the UCC understands that, and it will help. So that it was the feedback for the other second coordinate we did, 599235. And here I'm going to show 2 transcripts. Here's one with a 3 and a 4. And this person didn't use the A-B approach, which I'm going to ask you to use, but it's the equivalent. They used green for the B and this orange for the A. Now, often there are words, and I didn't mention this before, so I'm glad it came up here. There are words or sketches which match neither, and then you just leave them alone. Eventually, one of the things which come into play, and I'll say it now, is the ratio of what did you get versus the total elements that you put down. Obviously, if that's small, even though one thing might be pretty good, but if only 10% of what you put in your transcript matches one or the other of the targets, you know, that's getting down where you're sort of at random. We usually like to see numbers like 50%. You know, then you're getting up to roughly 3.5. And again, these are rough numbers, and you'll watch yourself. You learn from your own work. Okay, so here, oh boy, look at this circular, swirling. I would get into that again. I mean, precognition is amazing. Know how much I see it. You know, I actually believe eventually we're going to get to the point where we take it for granted, you know, when we move into the new consciousness paradigm. But I'm not there yet. I still get amazed by just this. I mean, you look at this. Okay, bio, Wonderful. And give yourself a lot of credit. You got that. Feel it again. Emphasize it. It'll help you feel it for the next time. Oh, boy, that's just so terrific. Um, Even waves is good. Notice you didn't mark outdoor. You probably don't know. This was probably indoor. Yeah, with the spotlight. Uh, let's see. Motion. Force, strong. I don't know about nature. Circular, curve, motion. You can see swirling. The ones that you got right really were strong. She probably only gave herself a 4, and that's fine because she got so much that wasn't right on. Though I would think forceful, yep, no, that was marked. Is that, oh, John. It's a he. John, are you here by any chance? No. Okay, but this was really a good session, and there was stuff in there which did not match, so he went up to a 4. Which again, as I say, that's a good session. 4s are good sessions. Okay. What didn't he get? I don't know if he said the word cold, and assuming he didn't say the word cold, so this is clearly ice. I'm going to feel what it feels like to be cold. Oh, I'm also, as I'm doing this, I'm getting smooth. I'm getting smooth from the ice. Okay. So that's what ice, smooth, cold feels like. I also seeing a little water, often ice and water, and I can see why. I just did that entanglement on my own. Okay. So you spend some time learning. And look at the blades. Those are sharp. I don't know if he said sharp anywhere, but I want to do sharp now. I want to learn sharp. This is what you do with your feedback sessions. This is how you improve your precognition. And you come up with other ways of doing entanglements. I just flashed on a woman who, during her remote viewing session, when she was setting up her paper, first thing she would do is she would make up a design on the outside, and then she would do the same design during the feedback session. So other ways, in addition to saying the coordinate out loud, to do entanglement. Think up your own ways. Those will be the best ways. Okay, so that was John's transcript. Notice I'm not paying any attention to the other possible target. That was the other possible target. And I think you should, in fact, ignore that. Don't give it any energy. Don't entangle it anymore. However, you probably will, because you will remember it if you did self-judging. And this is where I would like to bring in the 5-second rule. I don't know if it's still being used. It was popular in our day. We used it with our kids, and that is if you drop something and you pick it up within 5 seconds, you can still eat it. The germs haven't had a chance to do any damage. So that's what this cartoon says. But really what we want it for is during, and this works for any of your sessions, it's sort of the old saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. Return back to your session with a more positive, fun-creating, creative, interested attitude right away. Don't dwell on any of the negatives. And that holds even if you get, a miss. Yeah, you're going to feel bad and all of that, and that's fine, but just don't hold on to it for very long. Move on. Know that you're doing something fantastic, and you're going to get better and better at it, and use this as a learning experience. So this was another example, and this was a pass example. I couldn't find a miss, or actually would have shown a miss that was readable. But here, she did the count, or was it Millie? Yeah. Millie did a count, and you can see she had 7 things which she marked as A, and notice she marked some with a little a and some with a little b. So this meant there was a little match with photosite A. It wasn't quite as strong as the full A. And every now and then you get such a good match, you might really want to make a big A. And then when you do your counting, you count the normal A's as 1, a little a as a half, and a super big A you might want to count as 2. What you're saying is, this was so strong, this was so psychic, that I really want to give it extra credit. And then you come up with this ratio, which she then led to giving both the CRs of like 2.8, which you probably put it as a 3. Okay, so what does she do for her feedback session? Well, what you got right, you go over it. What you got right, you give yourself really credit for again. In a session like this where she didn't get as much right as she would have liked, you use it to maybe get into ice again, or maybe color. Here, look, I'm looking at lavender, purple. I'm looking at that color, and I'm saying the word lavender purple. I don't know what I would call it. I'm not one of those really good people with naming colors, but that's probably what I would put down if this were my feedback session. Also, look at the outstretch. Look at the long outstretch. So that's maybe what she was trying to do right here, now that I'm looking at this. And if I were doing the feedback session, I would say, yeah, you know what? I think my sub was trying to give me that. And I would emphasize that again. I would now draw them again more in this shape. Oh, those were the legs. There's the arm. Huh, not bad. And that's good. You can do that in the future. I kind of get that. You're telling me long. But you didn't tell me it was human. Human would have been nice. Do you have anything like biological? The feeling of human beings here. Put human there. Put human there. Yeah. So that's really important, to use this to learn. And what does the feeling of a human being? And two humans. Yeah, 2 humans. Okay, that's what I'm seeing there. That's what I'm saying. That's the way 2 humans feel. That's the way they can look. Obviously, they can look in different ways, but there are 2 of them there. There are 2 humans there. Okay, so I hope that gives you a sense of precognition. Really begins with the feedback session. Pay a lot of attention to it and do it in conjunction with your subconscious and really work it, because that then will impact your remote viewing session, because they are entangled, and you might as well make the entanglement as strong as you know how. And work on it. Figure out ways to make it even stronger. Okay, questions on that? Okay, let's go and let's do a new prediction. Now this one comes directly from the conversation I had with George, where he was talking a lot about the stock market, and it just made sense at that time for us to
Marty?
do. Yep.
Can I throw something in real quick? I couldn't get my mic on.
Yeah, sure.
530120. That was another Patriots prediction we did in July that never got feedback either. We predicted whether the Patriots would win the AFC.
Oh, that's true. That one was a pass, so I chose not to do it. I don't have time to do 3 really. But we will do it. We'll catch up on it. But you're absolutely right. I remember that.
I got a hit on that one.
We will be doing that one. So don't worry. That one we will pick them all up. We do feedback is where it all begins. So I'm going to be doing all of them.
And I'm going to send you an email. I want to get those 2 links that you were talking about. That's really interesting. I really liked what you had to say.
Yeah, good. Thank you. And send along an email, and I will be happy to send all that stuff to you. Okay. So Nori was wondering whether there would be a technical bear market. A technical bear market is connected to a 20% down move. It turns out there are different precise definitions. Some of them say it has to stay down over 20% for one period of time or another. But what I've chosen to do here is just take the 20% number. So the question is, will the Dow Jones Industrial Average close under, and this is 20% below the high, and here, this is a month chart. The high was 26,616.7. So I just took 20% below that, 0.8 of that, and this is the number you get. Now notice why he was concerned. Anybody who's been following the market knows that back in late January, it looks like January 26th, that's when the peak was, but then a few days later, early February, we got this big drop. Oh, somebody is, let me mute him. Okay, somebody back here, you could see these huge drops in 2 days. Well, I guess 5 days. We went back almost 3 months in terms of the price acceleration, which was going ahead, you know, nicely, but it really dropped rapidly. And then we had this rapid, and this is as of yesterday's close. I don't know what it's doing today, but it hasn't been as dramatic. It's doing this. People who feel there's going to be a bull market would say, well, you've come back part of the way, but now it's going to keep going down. And then people who are bulls, who think it's going to continue to go up, are saying, oh, okay, we're stabilizing here, and then at some time in the future, we'll go back up again. But except for, you know, the UCC possibly, no one knows for 100% sure. And what we're doing is precognition. So that puts that in context. And notice this is not front loading. Our whole approach with the two possible targets are totally randomly associated, one with over, one with under, one with yes, one with no. This is a yes-no question. So the yes is with one target, the no is with the other. Completely random, so we don't know. Okay, how do I get my coordinate? Now, this was a very interesting one because and this is the first time we've done that in this month plus series. I did the tasking early and asked people that they could participate in this to get as many predictions as possible in addition to what we're about to do now. And so I will also show you those at the end before I make a group prediction, and I want you to help me make that group prediction. So I can go back now here. Where did I put that? Oh, I think I brought it. Yeah, I brought it up here. So this was the original email, which has a copy of, this is the kind of email you will get in any of the groups that you're in. This was actually sent out February 13th. Okay, and so this is the link that all the people who have done predictions so far went to, and we're going to do the same thing. And then this is what they have to do. They each put in their own individual email because they're getting their own individual target, different than what we're going to get now. So I'm going to get a target from here. Notice it defaults webinar workshop because that's what the link was set up for. And we'll do one coordinate. And then I'll click. And there we have it. So the R coordinate, and literally ours, all of us are going to be using this same coordinate, is, and I'm going to say it out loud now, and you can say it out loud now, and we'll do it again at the remote viewing session, is 752258. So get a piece of paper, which will be your transcript, and you can put that on the top of it. The next thing, and we'll come back to this page because the transcript and what the other people did is they browsed, found their transcript from their computer and submitted it to the server. And the server has a transcript as well as the information about the two possible targets, all of which were chosen randomly. Well, the targets were chosen randomly. Okay, so now I want to go back. I'll leave this here. Which one is it? It's that one. Okay, hopefully I'll remember that. And now we'll go back here. And I'm just now trying to get you into the right mindset. Remember, consciousness is in fact fundamental, more fundamental than time. That's how you can connect up here. It begins with the feedback, and that's what you're going to connect up with. Feedback session is important for any of the newbies, and a reminder for the old bees. The kind of words that you get are listed here. You saw them in the examples we did there. I don't know what you would call them. They're the kind of first words you learn when you're describing the physical universe. They're not naming words. They're like sounds, dimensions, high, low, big, little, textures, um, uh, all the colors, of course, but smells, different tastes, temperatures, but hot, cold, frigid. These are the kind of words that typically come up. So I just reminding you of them. And now, Joe McMonagle and Ed May, the best known public remote viewer anyway, and Ed May, a scientist, has been doing this for so many years and is still active, basically say intention, attention, and expectation are three of the most important aspects which you get when you're doing your remote viewing. So right now, begin to set your intention, right? Your intention to describe and sketch your 752258 feedback and your personal consciousness. This really is a personal journey. Trust yourself. I think all of you, the fact that you found yourself here are past the point where other people are going to really give you the depth that you need to connect up with the UCC through your sub. You're going to find that out for yourself, self-realization. So on your transcript, you should have your coordinate, your name, the date and time. This is a sheet a lot of people still like to use. Some people actually will make it themselves and copy it. I will be happy to send you a copy of this, but it's kind of a reminder if stuff stops coming, or if you want to ask about textures, you might tap that. Most people still use blank sheets of paper, however, but I'm just showing this as a reminder. The gestalts tend to come up early, room for sketches, but you saw a lot of people intermix them. Everybody will come up with their own style. And then here's a place for AOLs. Distinguish when you think it came from the intellect, and do write it down. I'll use the word trash there because then it opens you up then to go down into your sub and get more information. Okay, so let's do it. You know your cue. Describe and sketch your 752258 feedback target. Cool down is important. What we're going to do here is, and people do it in very different ways, but I'm going to put on a 10-minute hemi-sync. So you're going to have 10 minutes for this. Just historically, roughly, people might use half of that time for cool down, but that's rough, and then the other half for doing their session. I do have on this tape a relatively quiet 5-minute notice, and set your intention, expectation, witness what your sub provides. I will click this shortly to solve it, to start it. There's a 5-minute notice, and then there's a 1-minute notice near the end. I'll probably also at 1 minute come in and do a little louder one to get you going. Okay, so stretch a little bit, get ready, and I will talk to you in 10 minutes. have about 1 minute left. Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, very good. Come on back to your normal state. I hope that felt good. Stretch a little bit. Different people come out of their RV sessions in different ways. Some have gone real deep and they're really in a different state of consciousness. Others aren't. Okay. So now you've done in linear time, step 1, the RV session. Here we are now. Let's do the judging session, right? Step 2. And that's yes, no, which will be based on the 2 possible targets, which we'll get shortly. And remember, the yes, no is associated randomly with those 2 pictures. Okay. We talked about the TARG system. I'll just, here it is again, just remind you that 3.5 is what's wagerable. 4 and 5 are both really good. Basically, the ratio of what you got divided by what you could have gotten just keeps going up. You get analytical stuff at the level of 6 or 7, but 3, 4, and 5 are both really very good. Analysis judging is not, well, this is the joke I always show. I alone know the contents of this envelope. It's a charcoal drawing of a woodchuck eating a small orange. Nice try, you little fraud, but that's a long way from an ink drawing of a beaver eating a tangerine. If any of you could find another cartoonish thing to make a point like this, send it to me, please. But the point is, as you saw, it's rare that you get things exact. And this is called judging. The judgment is it close enough that you feel comfortable it was a psychic connection? Okay. Small orange and tangerine, these are obvious connections. It's where do you say, geez, I'm pushing it too far. And if you think you're pushing it too far, you are. And the sub, the UCC through the sub up until your conscious mind, there's an element of noise. Minimizing the noise is really what our job is as remote viewers. But the UCC and the subconscious often use analogies and metaphors, and it's like and it's similar to. But again, you know, you don't want to push it too far. It wants to be something which the judge is going to say, oh yeah, I can see that connection easily. Now, I want to help you when you have to make these judgments, and you're going to be surprised that there'll be judgments you'll have to make. I want to, more briefly than I've done in the past, talk about first impression gestalts. That's what a FIG is, first impression gestalts. And Judge Joe McMonagle believes, and he's obviously worth listening to, that 50% of the judging value should go to these first impression gestalts. And what is a first impression gestalt? It sort of smacks you in the face when you first look at the picture. It gets you in the ballpark of what the target is. And there can be more than one FIG. You know, the action scene might get you, but there might also be a skiing action scene with the Olympics and everything. So the mountain or the white snow might also be a FIG, but it's the big picture gestalt-like stuff. Then the other 50% is this weighting approach we've talked about, where you mark the A's and the B's over the total. And so that fraction, in a rough sense, not too specifically, again, we say we feel it ought to be at least 50% to be interesting. But if it's much higher than that, then you give that more credit as well. And then here is just conceptually, if the FIG is 50%, you know, and if it was a 1, that alone gets you up to wagerable 3.5 if you've got all the possible gestalts that you see of those first ones. And, you know, usually there'll be 2 or 3 that you'll identify. But if you only got 1, you know, that gets you up to here for a half. But then the other might be a ratio which is high enough that you really think you want to add more, and you get up here. But ultimately, it's the TAR confidence ranking system that needs to feel right to you. Okay, so this is what you're saying as a group manager. When I look at these numbers, this is what you are telling me. Okay, but the first impression gestalt, a part of that, because, you know, good correspondence with several matchable elements, unambiguous unique matchable elements, those kind of things also tend to relate to the gestalt. So I'm just trying to give you a feeling of how you might arrive at these numbers and have them be reasonable. Okay, so I'm about to get the 2 pictures, and I'll show you how we do that. Again, it's all done with the internet. But after I do that, what I'm going to want you to do, just as you saw in those examples, is on your transcript, you're going to use your transcript and you're going to judge with it, mark the A or little a, B or little b on your transcript, depending on how it matches one or the other. And then you're going to send those 2 numbers to me via the chat box, because I'm going to make a collection of all of these, and then email me your transcript, and then we can talk about it. You know, if you don't want to, you don't have to, but, you know, it'd be nice to do it. You learn and other people will learn. It's good to see other people's work. So let's do it. Again, go to the email, and oh no, now we did that. We did the email. Now we have to go back to here. Remember here, this is where we got the coordinate. So normally each of you would take your transcript, get it to your computer, and then browse for it. Since I didn't do a session, I have what I call just a dummy transcript, just to go to the next step for all of us so we can get the two pictures, the two possible photo sites. And so again, you would just simply find yours. It would show up there. And now you click submit. And as soon as you do that, you see one. Down below is the other. I will show you both. Some people like to do the judging just on this one first. Remember, there are two possible targets. I'm showing one first, and so you might just put the A's. Just look at this picture and just put the A's. But here in this environment, I want to show both now, but you could still just do the A's. And then down below are always both of these. And our job is going to be to come up with the 0 and 7 as a group. So that's what I'll do after I accumulate all of yours. So do your judging. If you have any questions, just ask away. And I will put the TARG scale up here as well. If I can find it. I know I have it here somewhere. Wait, hold on. Wow. Huh. Huh.
Air, water.
Wow. I know I had it, but I'm going to get it a different way here. Sorry, give me a moment here. Okay, I apologize. That took longer than I had planned, but there you go. I think picture B is a volcano. But again, you know, what's interesting is when you're viewing that and describing it, you're not going to name it anyway, so it doesn't matter in many ways. You know, there are plenty of things you can use to describe that that have nothing to do with its name, and that's the basic idea. Okay, the A's and B's, Jay, you've got a transcript hopefully in front of you, and next to each element and each sketch, you will have an A if you think it matches photo site A. You'll put a B if you think it a match to an element associated with photo site B, or you won't put anything if it matches neither. So right on your transcript, you should have some A's and some B's.
Well, thank you very much. Can you have items that match both?
Yes,
A and B?
absolutely. In the examples we showed, there were items that would be both A and B.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. Okay, and when you're ready, don't rush it. This is an absolute critical stage. Remember, we're taking action on this, but when you're ready, in the chat box, and I'm keeping a table of the previous ones that other people have done, and yours, just simply put a, you can just put an A and then a number between 0 and 7, and then a B and a number between 0 and 7. I don't understand, William, what you said. Link, please, to push up the results. I just don't know what that means. I'm sorry. And then send me an email with your transcript as an attachment, and we'll then be able to discuss them. Yeah, I'll try to remember to do that, Donna.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and if I don't, just email me.
I will.
I take good.
Sorry.
No
I gotta
problem.
scoot.
Yeah, no. These are long.
Alrighty. Have a good day, everyone.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got 5. Okay, keep doing your judging, but I'm going to check my email. I think you've. Let's see. Okay, so I've got 2. So let's look at Donna's. Oh no, taxery is one of ours. Okay. Okay, so this one's upside down. Let's see if I can possibly. Oh, I can rotate and flip. Oh, there you go. Cool. Okay, let me put you, Evelyn. Okay, those of you that are still judging, do keep judging, as I say. But I think what I will do is let's talk about this one. Okay, so, oh no, wait, you can't. I think I have to flip that again. Flip horizontal. Yeah, now you can read it. Okay, good. Whose was this? No name. Okay, so this is taxer. .5 and 3. Okay, taxer, do you want to talk about this? If you do, get on your mic. But yep, looks kind of cool. A
Does
was,
it work?
yeah, good. I can hear you. Yep.
Yes, I get this air, water, flying over the water. I got this swimming, or this flying whale. From the B session, I get the colors very good. And also in the middle up, this was a little bit confusing. This also give the B a 3 because the colors. But definitely, when I looked first at the picture, I know I got this flying paraglider, and
Right. Okay.
and I got very nice emotions. The heartbeat for the dog when he watched the
Where,
fish.
yeah, where is that? How did you mark that?
This is down the left. Excitement, fear to fall, heartbeat. Yes.
Ah, mm-hmm. Okay, though I guess this might be exciting too.
Yeah, but here I see that didn't see big. Maybe they who make the picture, but I don't know. It
Yeah,
would be far away.
yeah, I don't know either. In fact, I think that's a volcano. What? I don't know what this is. Yeah, I think that's dirt, but okay. Um, Not that, as I say, we don't need to know that. Okay, very good. Yeah, you got a lot of the blue is B, but right, white is both, black, yeah, is both. What is it? What are these words right here?
Air as a Luft, water, up in the air, water, man-made,
Ah,
up, fly, in the middle, up, fly,
okay. Mm-hmm.
jump, fly, as something excitement. I was thinking
Right.
at the beginning a base jumper who jumped from a mountain to the water. Was my first impression.
Okay, well, that's certainly A. Okay, very good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, very nice. Okay. Let's go to the next one. So you can see level here. Water was clearly your biggest thing, but even your sketch looks a little bit like a boat.
Yes, if you click the left, on the
Oh,
right
there's
side,
more here. Yeah, okay.
there is this boat, there is something. And this is also the boat.
Yep,
So,
and this certainly is water.
what else?
Yep, very nice. I'd say that's what you connected with. Very good. Okay. And remember, everybody's got to do these individually. Okay, so now let me go and get the next one. So we got, let's do Donna's. She was the one who had to leave. Make that down there. Okay, so, oops. Oh, I get rid of that then. Okay, so here's Donna. She gave a 4.5 also to A. There it is. So let's see. The rectangular stuff, yep, clearly A. Biological. Yeah. Slick groove. Pulling. Motion. Gravity pulling. Now that should, I would think that should have been a B, right? Again, I just give you my impressions. It turns out I'm not necessarily a better judge than you are, but anyway, I see motion there, and there's certainly plenty of motion here. In fact, more motion in B than A. Feels like inside. Plain, flat, summary. The lines are important. Holds up objects. Objects are smooth and cool. Maybe glass. Helps to organize. Yeah, that all fits. 100%. I see. She's saying her gestalt. Yeah, well, she certainly got biological in this. Okay. Well, you're looking at, if any of you want to make comments on this, please do. You can all turn on your mics or in the chat box, but I can't quarrel with that, except as I said here, she might do this as motion might have been a B, and I can't look at everything, just not enough time. But presumably she did. Okay, so we'll turn that one off. Oh, good. I'm still getting more of these. Thank you, Jay. Okay. Let's go get the next one after. So now let's look at Lila's. Okay, Lila, just because of time here, we're going almost on to 3 hours, and yours was a pass, which happens. Let me just use that as a reason to tell everybody there's nothing wrong with passes. Don't you ever feel there's something wrong with passes. There could be all kinds of good reasons, which we don't understand, for passes. And in fact, one of the biggest mistakes I see people make is they've done a session and they've invested that time. And if they do self-judging, they just don't want to pass. And so they will lean one way or the other based on some minor thing that strikes them. Don't do that. Nothing wrong with passes. Thank you, Lila. Oh, that. Okay, no, that was Michelle. She didn't do it. Evelyn did, though. Okay. Okay. Evelyn, let's lower that. And there you are. Okay. Okay, very good, Evelyn. I know you've got a mic. Why don't you summarize, what happened here and why you gave a 4.5 to B? Because you judged it. What led you to do that?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Well, I've been watching YouTubes on how to do ideograms because I was pretty frustrated with so many times that I have 3 or 4 good ones in a row, and then I have a whole bunch of displacement where I have a really wonderful session on the wrong photo site. So it's not precog, but it's definitely, I'm seeing something out there, but I'm not seeing the right thing. So I was pretty frustrated.
It is precog. It's called
Yeah.
it's called displacement,
Right.
and you're not the only one that has it. But okay,
So I've been studying ideogram YouTubes and listening and how to query the ideogram. So the last 2 sessions I've done, the one I did that was a hit Monday, and this one I've just spent the whole time almost querying the ideogram and only done 1 sketch at the end, and getting all the gestalts from the ideogram and then just writing down the AOLs or the other things that aren't exactly gestalts. And so that's what this is. That's why it's so much writing. And in the beginning, I wrote the number and then immediately wrote the ideogram, and then I did it again. And then I queried them, and the mushy soft was the very first thing that just came through really, really heavy from querying the ideogram. And the sky air was the next thing that came. So I was thinking it was, going to be some kind of a landscape. But anyway, you could see the points where I put my pen on it.
Okay, yeah,
Each one I got a gestalt from, and then after the gestalt, then I got some of these other words that are down gully, hidden, river, rugged. I got some of those as I queried, but I'd get the gestalt first, and then I'd put these as more down as like AOLs. And so I just kept going down, and then I did the second one that's almost similar shape, but not exactly. And then when I got down to the bottom, I wrote the number again, and I wrote a description of what I was seeing in the ideogram, the curving upward, downward, up again, peaks rounded. And I was seeing this sketch, but I'm having some physical problems now. I'm probably facing some serious neck surgery. And so it looked like what I was seeing was a damn skull and a neck, And so I didn't want to draw it because I thought, I'm just thinking about myself. I finally did draw it, and damned if it, I made it rounded, but actually what I was seeing wasn't quite so rounded. So what I was actually seeing was that pretty much the outline of that volcano.
This one, yeah. Okay.
It's so much with the x-rays I've been looking at. I didn't want to draw it, but I finally did. And that was the end then when I finally drew that. And then I see that, and I thought, well, criminy, that's exactly what it was. It's the volcano. So almost nothing really matched the boat. And I've seen these 2 pictures before. I've had them as photo
targets, yeah.
before.
Well, the thing that does match is I thought loving. That was kind of interesting.
What's that? Where?
The loving, isn't that loving at the top?
Living.
Oh,
That's
living. Okay, that's A. Okay.
Living.
Okay.
I'd rather write living than biological. I don't know, just because I'm a nurse, I just kind of feel biological, so a little more scientific than I want to be. So no, that's living.
Okay, Evelyn, thank you. Let me move on. That's good, and I see what you did. And here it looks like you actually used Joe's technique in full. The fig plus.
I do. Yeah, I used the fig, and actually, I gave the A more fig than I think it deserved. But
okay, so you feel comfortable with your B selection. That's
yeah,
good.
Definitely. The sky was part of it, the blue sky and all that.
You were talking about a little bit about displacement. Let me just point out, already we've seen good sessions on both sides, and we don't that is the outstanding question in ARV, because people will be precognitive in that they didn't know either of the pictures. They'll get a good match, but why is it the wrong one sometimes? And I think there's some deep there's just some deep psychological things there which eventually we'll understand, but that's just the way it is. Okay, let's do Anita. Okay, let's see. Anita, I don't have you in my table. Let me add you in my table. And I can rotate. To the right. And do you want to give us a summary of this, Anita, or are you...
Just want to check if my mic is working. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, lovely, because last time it didn't work and I don't know why. Okay, let's see. I first got an image of coming through of like blue or green at the top and like something darker at the bottom, something more like copper-like. That is there next to my ideo gestalt, and I got space, so it's something up in the air. Then I got a shape. I couldn't quite make out that double thing, AB just under the word target, if it was the shape of the boat or if it was the shape of the clouds. Actually, it could be both.
Mm-hmm.
Then I got a round thing like a button, but it reminded me of a bullet somehow. So the shape was physically of more like the boat to me, but it could also be the fact that like it felt like a bullet could be the thing in the air to the right side. But because of the shape, I chose A. Next to it was like a cylindrical, also reminded me of the boat.
You do know that you can do both. In other words,
Yes.
if it's one and actually, you know what, it might be the other. You can put an A, B, big A, little b, whatever feels right.
That's the thing about being Psi. You see one thing and you feel another thing with your senses. So how do you write that down?
Oh, well, yeah, right.
So
When
I
you
actually
figure
have
that one out, you tell me. But
have to consider both. But what I found what works is that first impression, that butt kick thing you get at first with what hits you. That thing is usually the right thing.
Okay, yeah.
Let me see.
Interesting.
Okay, colors. Green, blue, shiny, silver, orange. I got a lot of both. Texture, funny, I got the boat more. Also, the smell and the taste and the temperature was the boat more. So it seems like I went to both, but the volcano thing came through a lot stronger.
Yeah, well, and you gave it right. And I'm really glad that...
And it's weird because this morning I had a volcano target and I could feel the similarity in the feeling.
Really?
It's so weird.
Yeah.
Yes, it's like total entanglement.
Yeah, that is kind of cool.
So it would be interesting to see the outcome of this.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and
very
then
good.
I got some more feelings of movement in the sky, electrical, but I also got the mechanical of the boat. Another thing that hits me is movement. If I pick up any movement, it also seems to be the more accurate thing.
And you got that here. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I got that in the volcano, but not in the boat.
Right.
Okay, and then I've got some patterns in the boat, some more stuff in the boat. On the ARLs, I got a lot of stuff that I could associate with both. So I just marked those. The shape of the nipple reminds me of the nose of the dolphin or the whale.
Dolphin, right.
Yes.
Right.
Fittings, mechanical, is all boat. Blue light, blue flame tells me more about the volcano. Well, I didn't know it was a volcano, but when you told me it's a volcano, it made sense. Bulb, torch, firefly.
Yep.
All the cylinder can was where others. Yeah, okay, so that's basically it.
This is good. This is good. Okay, very good. Thank you. You know, I like us all to be able to look at it and summarize it, and that's just what you did. Very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's see. And then we have, okay, put it in here. Let's see how I can see this one. Um, okay, wait, maybe if I can make it smaller, I can get it on one. There. Okay, let me see if I can turn this around now. And I think this is the last one, unless I'm missing some. And if I am, tell me. Okay, here. Here. Take the image. Rotate clockwise. Oh, let's see, maybe I can make it big here. Oh. Okay, I think we can read that. Okay, why don't you give us a summary of I don't know what happened there. Hold on. I love computers and I hate computers. That was something else. There we go. Okay. Una, is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, good. So why don't you summarize for us what led you to your CRs?
Yes. Okay, so I'm new to this.
Okay.
And I had to laugh when I saw the picture with the dog, the A picture, because I kept on getting this small, fat, biological. I was thinking human being, but when I saw that small, fat, slumpish, what is it? Is it a whale, a dolphin?
Mm-hmm.
And I kept on seeing eating, but I knew it wasn't eating. So I've got an AOL, eating. I knew it had to do something with the mouth. So that was quite funny for me to see. And one of the first things I also got was smells, fried smell and a sweet smell. Now I'm not sure. That's why I needed to know whether it's a volcano or just clouds, a sunset, or what it is.
It's not regular.
I also got steam, and that was a bit.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. The biological is really.
Yeah. So.
Is that bumpy, humpy, where my cursor is? What do you know? What word that is?
Well, it's slumpish.
Lumpish. Okay.
Slumpish, like slumpy.
Right. And then over here, oh, all these are
And
A's.
then energy movement. Yes, I had the energy movement, the jerkiness, which I think fits more with the boat, the
Right.
bumpiness.
Yeah, right. But
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. It's interesting the way the subconscious works.
Yeah.
And you marked your ideogram as a B.
No, that's part of the ideogram. That's part of what came out.
Oh,
So
it went up and around and down like that. Okay, interesting.
It's like a biological, but not quite correct sort of.
Right.
Yes, slumpish.
Yeah, so clearly in terms of Gestalt, the biological would be the weight for this one. And I don't see a lot of action or anything like that in here. You know, one of the things I do try to point out is, you know, even though I try not to be negative, if you miss something, because judging when you go back, you know, some of the people are going to have misses, some will have hits because we're on both sides. Often a person will go, oh, I missed that, or I missed that. And that's what I look for. I'm looking for in case you missed anything. But you know, at least I don't see anything now. Don't have too much time to study. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did I miss anybody? I
just sent my session to your email.
Just now. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. And who just said that?
Jay.
Okay, Jay. Right. Yeah.
I sent a better version later on.
What's that?
I will send another version if you want later on, better illuminated, better lightened.
Okay, but right now I'm not getting anything. And you sent it to Marty at p-i-a.com? Oh, I'm getting funny.
Marty?
Yeah.
Looks like we have some new people that we haven't had so many new ones.
It's really good.
And that's great, but maybe they need the link to the transcript thing that we write on, and maybe they're
welcome
the
to
other
ask for that.
You presented, maybe you can send those guys the links to those things because they don't know to ask for them.
Yeah, I suggest it. Yeah, if there's anything you've seen here that you'd like a copy of, just send me an email. But right now, Jay, I'm not getting it. Let me
I sent it to the email you just mentioned.
Okay, so let me then. I have had on occasion.
My name is also
with my email. No, so I'm going to go see. I close my email and now I'll open it again. And on some occasions I have had that problem. Let's see. And I would like to see it because you gave a 6 to the B. You know, and others have gone, you know, and you should know while we're waiting here to see if I get it. It says waiting to update this folder, so there may be something. The fact that we get things on both sides is common, and that's just a sign that nobody's 100%. So you can't get upset when you get misses. In fact, psychologically, learning how to handle misses and turning them into positive learning experiences. There's always more to learn from a miss than a hit, that sort of thing. I think is very important. You know, the people that get consistent high hit rates that can become precog pros, you know, have mastered that. Nope, I don't know what it is. I do not have it, and it says I'm up to date. So
okay, no problem.
Maybe you can. How about if you look at it and describe it to us? Why you gave you know, the 6. Your number, which I'm going to show next,
Okay.
is a 6.
Yes, the reason is I really had two very good visuals that unmistakably are related to the B target.
Uh-huh.
And indeed, I got 21 A's and 31 B's
Mm-hmm.
descriptors, including the two B's associated sketches.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, but if I go very fast on my descriptors, that would be uh, slow, intense, soft, blue, dust, chase. Chase I put to A because that was a dog. Chase, dog, something like that. Strong and powerful. That would be both because you have an orca, a killer whale there. So it could be both the cloud and that huge animal there. Intrinsic value I put A because that would be the boat, probably. Lovely, as you mentioned, I put the word lovely. I put that to both. Dust, spanking. I can still spanking the sound of the thunder or the volcano or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Nature. I got avalanche. So I put motion
Okay,
energy.
let's not go through all of them. Let me ask you this. Did you
All
get
right.
again, time is an issue here.
Yes.
Time is an issue. I love it. I actually said that. Did you get any sketches?
Yes, I got two.
And they look more like B?
Definitely.
Okay. Okay, very good. So that was a 6. We unfortunately lost William because he went the other way with a high score. Okay, so is there anybody else I missed or who? Well, let me show you the summary now. First of all, make sure it's right. We did not see Williams, unfortunately, and he gave his a 7. But if he's a newbie, you know, I'd like to know if I can trust that. And we didn't see it. Williams was not one of those that we saw. Okay. But if your stuff, if everything here is correct, then, and this comes, what you see down here are the CRAs and the CRBs for all the people who submitted it prior to this webinar. Now, I judged that earlier today, and just based on their results, I concluded side 2 because you can see here 6, 5.5, 5, 5.5, high numbers. Here, 5 and 4.5 is good, but only 2 of those and a 4. So we had, you know, you can just see they're bigger here. Plus here, I take the difference to be important because, as I said, judging is usually only, different judges will only come to within about 1. So that's what these numbers are. Now let's look up here. And that's why I was interested in your 6, Jay. And I'm going to do what I usually do here is I tend to mark the high ones with yellow.
Well, we could do, if it's the case, because we have naming of the target, you could lower it to 5 then. It's the first 5 time I do that. Because I didn't actually name it.
Right, or you would have given yours a higher one too. Okay, so looking at this, the 4.5 is solid. Just looking at the numbers now, and in some ways I'm just hoping, you know, and this is the way it is with the Precog Pros, I just trust their numbers. And that's ultimately the way everybody should get, where they're communicating their confidence based on the matching. But here you can see it's close, but if all I had was this, I would probably pass because, you know, they're high ones on both sides. 7 versus a 6, which, you know, as they say, is good, but the 4.5s are good. Here's a 4.5 and a 5. So there's just a difference in the count by 1. Now down here, let's do the same thing here. Yeah, you guys are seeing, you know, group judging is something which frankly I haven't mastered. Because this is the kind of situation I see a lot. Let's see if I got them all. Oh no, I don't want, I want the 3.5. I usually make that gray. The one on the edge, I want to count it, but I don't want to count it as strong. No, that's not what I want. What I want is that. Okay, so did I miss any? Okay, so in terms of the yellow counts, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's say yellow, which means over 3.5. And here I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're going to make this tough. Okay, some of you chime in. You're now, you know as much as I do. Okay, here I just use the numbers. Here you saw everything I saw. If I gave the 3.5s as much credit, let's say plus 3.5s, where the person thought, okay, it was good enough to wager, I would add 1 here, which is a 7, and I'd add 3 here, which is 11. So at the very least, it's leaning towards CRB, right? Anybody else want to chime anything in here? Leaving it up to me, huh?
I would go with the past 2, Marty. I wouldn't.
Who said that?
This is Lila.
Lila?
Yes. Yeah.
Based on?
It's just too close to call. And mine, even though we didn't go over my transcript, I got precepts on both photosites, and good precepts, I think. Good ones.
So you're saying it's trying to tell you to pass, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
That'd be interesting to watch in the future if somehow, well, I don't know. I mean, it will be either a bear market or not. I mean, it will be either a yes or a no. Okay, I heard you. That's probably certainly reasonable advice.
So
Anybody
Marty,
else? Yeah?
if I had not passed, I would have chosen photosite A.
Okay.
And as I said in the chat box, it's because I had the precept of water 3 times.
Right. So you're saying you would like to change?
No, I don't want to change
maybe
anything.
3.5?
No,
Okay.
I don't.
But you were leaning in that direction.
I was leaning, exactly. I had some great precepts for photosite B as well. So
yeah, you see, it's just, it is tough.
Yeah.
You know, and it's only one prediction, but I don't know. This down here with 3 more people, So this is interesting. Notice taxer. Is he still here? Yeah. Taxer here I just noticed was A. Here it was B.
Marty?
Yes, uh-huh.
Anita, I just want to hear if you got my earlier transcript. I don't see it below there. I also did another one earlier.
Oh.
It would just be
I should have
interesting
gotten.
to
I thought I got
and
them
it was
all.
quite a good one. So I was just interested to see.
I missed it. Which direction?
The earlier transcript was A.
So it was a good one for A.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why I don't have it here, but let's not go back. Do you remember what the scores
Okay.
were?
The scores. Let me just see.
I don't know
I
why.
think it was something like 6 and 3.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know why I didn't get that, Anita.
Okay, just check on
Sorry.
that
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You'll get your feedback and everything, with the
Yeah,
link.
I'll see
So,
then. Yeah.
well, that
That's
of course changes this to a 7 and this to an 8.
because that was a very good transcript.
Yeah.
Because I got
Well,
everything on A and about nothing on B.
okay. Oops. You see, I'm now falling into the trap I always tell everybody else not to fall into, which is I hate to give Nori a pass, right? But especially with you, if I was on the margin, and I was, of leaning towards this direction, and now based just on the yellow, that's definitely a pass. And then this is only maybe not a pass because it's 3.5, so I'm afraid I have to pass. But you can see where you
I
just
always have to spoil the
you don't
game.
want to, you don't want to, but reluctantly, a pass. I don't even think I want to say slightly leaning towards B. Well, I'll put it here. Slightly leaning toward B because of the CR equal 3.5s. Okay. There you go. So let's go to the next step. We've now said the prediction is a pass, and you can see how even for me it was hard to do in this case. But don't let it be hard to you. Please learn from that. The pass is the right thing to do here. And now what we have to do is do the final judging, which should be, no, we've gotten rid of Targ, so it's the other, oh, here it is over here. Okay, so remember this page. Seems like a while ago, but here it is. And so I'm going to make it a pass. Now, the two ways you get passes. You saw some of the transcripts like Lila's, which was a 3 and a 3, or there might have been one which was a 2 and a 3. If the two numbers are less than 3.5, that's one way you get a pass. The other way you get a pass is by these numbers being the same. And since we had so many high ones on both sides, I'm going to make this a 5 and a 5. So that's a pass. But that indicates, when we go back and look at it later, that there were good sessions on both sides. In fact, and then you always put in text here, which is saved on the server, so you'll have access to this. Good sessions on both sides. Pass with slight leaning toward photo site B because of 3 CR equal 3.5s. So you write what's ever appropriate. thoughts and feelings about the judging. And then you submit. And that'll be our prediction. And now is the first time we will find out. Well, we know it's a pass, but photosite B, see it says here for that coordinate, photosite A was randomly associated with no, photosite B associated with yes. So we're slightly leaning towards a bear market, but not enough that I would take action. But that's what happened, okay? So there you go. So that's our prediction, a pass with a very slight lean towards a bear market based on our work on that prediction. Now let's see if I go to my PowerPoint again. Okay, so let's finish this off in this fashion. Okay, you and the universe. Now, everything consciousness touches, that is you and the universe. And here's the universe of collective consciousness, right? Our blue. Here you are. But you, with your fuzzy boundary, have access to the universe of collective consciousness. I mean, it's an idea. It's a thing we're talking about. Yes, it's the most fundamental thing. But as we're talking about it, it has a fuzzy boundary. But guess what? You are literally, through your fuzzy boundary and its fuzzy boundary, connected to everything. To really get that, and to get that you have ways of increasing entanglement to anything that you can think about. Because if you can think about it, it's in the universe of collective consciousness. That's what the universe of collective consciousness means. Anything consciousness touches. So the entanglement with those things turns out to be the critical aspect, I believe, of all the phenomenon we've been seeing and talking about. Now, again, you know I love quotes because some people say things so much better than I can say it. Skip Atwater said, "Some say that we pass from spirit into the physical at birth, and conversely pass from the physical world into spirit at death. I say that we never pass from the spirit." And Skip was the guy who was the head of the RV unit at Fort Meade. So, yeah, you know, you're here, and it's somehow your spirit, your soul, right? It's a thing we can talk about. And it seems to be around all the time and connected to everything. Here's another way, two things which I really liked here. We are born of love. Love is our mother. So the UCC in Rumi, and I haven't studied him or anything, I just pick up these quotes, and if they resonate with me, I share them and hope they resonate with you. The UCC is sort of the mother, might be this concept here. And then I love this one too. It goes along exactly with what Skip said in my picture. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the entire ocean in a drop. Isn't that cool? I thought that looks a lot like that. Okay, so again, what do ARV, PK, and teleportation have in common? Here is the same list I showed before. I'm not going to go over it again, but I did want to add, we've had many other people talk about love, you know, syntropy, which is kind of the opposite, the opposite from entropy. Entropy is a tendency for things to get more chaotic. Syntropy is the tendency for things to get more ordered. And there was a book, Ulysses, and gave several talks on this, and he connects directly syntropy with love. And I accept that. Emotions are so important. Bringing love into everything. Bring love into that spoon if you want to do PK. Bring love into that horse fly if you wanted to teleport. Can only help. You know, the power of emotions and positive emotions, and it's hard to find a more powerful emotion than love, helps. And then the physical world paradigm, love it. We're here, right? Love it. And believe as broadly and as deeply as you can about it, and mostly love yourself wherever you are, and believe that indeed you're part of the UCC and have access to everything in it. And with that aid, you can do virtually anything you can imagine. So with that, I wish all of you healthy, wealthy, and wise lives. And I thank you for joining me here. So
thank you very much, Matt. That was a great class for me. The first I did with you, and I really loved it from start to end. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you for that, Jay. Okay, and thank you all. And with that, I will end this unless there's another question or comment or anything. Okay, bye now. Keep precogging.